Newcastle United beat Nottingham Forest 3-1 at the City Ground yesterday in a really, really comprehensive win that transforms the season and the whole outlook of it. In this video, I'm going to explain a couple of reasons why I think it happened and also what it means for the season going forward. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to another analysis video. Apologies there wasn't a live yesterday as I was at the City Ground to witness Newcastle's best away performance in a long time. And a real statement win, as I said yesterday, from the pitch side. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it in the description. My instant reaction to the game. But Newcastle performed really well and performed in a way that does, I think, really make a difference to the way the team is viewed, both internally and externally. Because I said coming into the game, they needed a victory away from home. They needed to play really well away from home, and to do that against Nottingham Forest, who are third in the league. And as I said in last week's video about their recruitment, this isn't an accident. They've really streamlined themselves, given themselves a structure, and they've found a new level under Nuno Espirito Santo. They've looked really good in transition, as I think they did yesterday at times. And crucially though, their defence was really strong. They've only conceded 3 goals in the Premier League up until yesterday. Now they've conceded double that because of the way Newcastle played in that second half. And I will get into it, but first of all, please continue to like, share and subscribe to the channel and the videos. It really does help me get more views and grow the channel as well. I am obviously trying to do different things on the channel. If you've watched Exploring Football, I was at Doncaster Rovers on Saturday. It's a really busy weekend for me. I'm quite tired today. Doncaster Rovers against Notts County on Saturday was really exciting game. Check that video out on the channel. There'll be another video hopefully next week while the international breaks on. That will not stop Exploring Football because obviously lower league football happens, and that's where I'm trying to give a little bit of a focus on different levels across England and Europe. So please continue to support the channel while I do that. And also, as I say, a podcast will be coming up in the next few weeks. I'm still trying to work out how exactly I really want to do that. But if you have any thoughts on that, do put them in the comment section below. Let's get talking about Newcastle United and what a performance that second half was. The two players I really want to talk about are Alexander Isak, but first, Joe Willock. There's a stat that's going round at the moment, and I know a lot of people, since my Sean Longstaff video, have been saying that you can use stats to prove any argument you want, and I fully understand that. But there's a stat going around that says that Joe Willock, Sean Longstaff, Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton have played together in 14 different occasions. Newcastle have never lost a game. You can see why, and you can see why that was the bedrock of the team that got into the Champions League 2 years ago. The energy, the difference in level, and as I say, I've said previously, when Joe Willock is in form, when Joe Willock is fit, he has the biggest impact on the difference in the game plan for Newcastle. He's the one who changes gear and is the most dynamic player, gets Newcastle rolling forward. Now that was evident in the first half, even though Nottingham Forest, I think, were a better team. They went into half time deserving to be ahead. Their transition was working better, and I did have worries about the midfield in some ways, and I still question the fact that one pass and one little movement got Nottingham Forest turning Newcastle over. It took 2 or 3 passes for Newcastle to get in behind Nottingham Forest. Yes, Nottingham Forest are really good at that. Obviously, they've got Gibbs-White, they've got Elanga and Hudson-Odoi. That's what they're built on. But one pass was far too easy at times. That is a concern. So it isn't a rolling positive midfield performance, I don't think. But the one thing that really did make a difference was Joe Willock on that left-hand side. Again, started alongside Joe Linton, who obviously that connection we've spoken about, and it's well documented, that connection. Crucially, actually, Joe Linton moved on to the right-hand side before he really had much more of an impact on the game. So Willock was linking up really well with Gordon in the second half. But just that way he changed the game, and just the way he pulled the team forward. And I do think, I said it before, I think he is one of the most underrated footballers outside of Newcastle in England. He should be getting international recognition, and if he wasn't injured for the last year, then he would be getting that. I'm absolutely sure of it. The performance was really good. The breaking of the lines was excellent. Newcastle were good in possession, but their pressing was really good as well, and he led that. And Nottingham Forest were giving the ball away left, right and centre, particularly in that second half when Newcastle swarmed them. And as I said yesterday at the City Ground, killed the game off when the chance was there. The big difference for me in the first half and the second half wasn't the performance level necessarily. It was just the fact that they started to get their eye, and the final ball was there a little bit better in the second half. But Willock was the player, I think, who set the tone, got Newcastle into those positions throughout the game. And as I say, there's no player in the team, I don't think, who does what he does. And I think if he was fit for all of last season, Newcastle would have had a much better season. And actually, even though he wasn't fit for much of last season, you can still think of two really crucial games that he helped create that intensity level. The away game in the Cup at Manchester United, a 3-0 victory when he scored a really good goal, and the Arsenal game at home, I think like 3 days later, when he crossed the ball in for Anthony Gordon to score. This is a flip side of what I was saying about the systems issue, and I think Newcastle have finally shown variety and found a way to change things. Obviously, Joe Willock going on to the right made things a little bit different. Harvey Barnes coming on in the second half, scoring a goal. I mean, the reaction and the substitutions, and Eddie Howe, for all my criticism, and I think it was rightly justified against Chelsea and other games this season where they've been too samey, they've been too static. Now they're being a bit more dynamic in how they do things, and now Eddie Howe is finding a way to work things out. But as I said in the video yesterday, the Sandro Tonali debate is more about whether it's him or Joe Willock at the moment. Not in my opinion. I think that is what Eddie Howe's thinking is, because Longstaff being in that midfield tightens things up. It still was a little bit iffy yesterday, and I think that's what you get. That's the issue you get with Joe Willock being in the team, is it will naturally, because he's always looking forward, it'll naturally create wider spaces in the middle, and that was always going to be difficult. But Newcastle took a risk tactically, and it really paid off because of what Willock brings. And I do think that's an attitude Newcastle should embrace, trying to play to their strengths rather than nullifying their weaknesses. I spent the whole summer at the Euros talking about Gareth Southgate and how England struggled to get that balance right. Eddie Howe yesterday got the balance right. He took the risk. Yes, there was spacing behind. They banked on the fact that they could win the ball high and dominate the ball, but also they then did better things with the ball as well yesterday. So Joe Willock really set that tone, and I think he was really impressive. So he was the first player I want to talk about. The second one was Alexander Isak. There's been lots of talk over the last few weeks about his contract, about his fitness, about what he brings. And actually a few doubts have crept in and a few issues have crept in over the discourse around him, and I think he showed yesterday exactly why he shouldn't be doubted. The contract situation, as I said on True Faith, I think that was blown way out of proportion because it will not be getting to him. His agents will be in a position, and what that is playing in the Champions League. So they will want a position where it's easy to get Isak Champions League football if ever needs to leave Newcastle to get it. That's as far as this has gone. And he's already earning money that's similar to what Gordon has been given, what Bruno's been given, and what Joe Linton's been given. So there's not that need to increase the wages, and there's 3.5 years left on the deal. It'll not be a situation of Alexander Isak sitting in a room with Eddie Howe talking about a contract. It'll not have got anywhere near that. So that being a distraction, I think is far too easy to add two and two together and come to that conclusion. I think it was purely a fitness issue. He's had injury problems this year, then match fitness. I think that was the big problem against Brighton. I think, again, I said it before, if you look at the touch that he took with that chance against Brighton, the fact that it wasn't crisp and clean suggests to me that it was a match fitness and a sharpness issue. He seems to have got that back. 4 goals in 4 games, and yesterday he was leading the Nottingham Forest defence on a merry dance with his dribbling, dropping deep. His positioning was really good. Showed a match today. Theo Walcott did a really good analysis of his positioning, and the fact that when he dropped deep, the Nottingham Forest defence didn't know what to do with him because they didn't want to engage, because they know what he can do when he's got tight spaces. He showed that, but he's just so intelligent. He makes the difference for Newcastle up front. Playing as a modern number 9, he's the reason why Newcastle are able to play so dynamically, because he can run the channels, he can drop deep, he can bring other players into play. He's so intelligent with everything that he does. But the difference was he got his eye in yesterday with that chance, and he's got his eye in generally. And I think that, as I said, that was the big difference between the second half and the first half for Newcastle. I don't think Newcastle were too bad in the first half. The reason why Forest was stronger was they were roared on by the crowd, who were really engaged in the first half. The noise levels were great at the City Grounds. The City Grounds are a great stadium. I do want to go back and do an Exploring Football there this season, I think, because it is a really, really amazing place to watch football. And the first half really showed that Forest were on the front foot. They were really getting in behind. But Newcastle was still creating chances and still creating opportunities and still putting pressure on. They just couldn't get the final ball from Gordon, or they couldn't quite unlock Isak in the same way. The second half, as the game went on, They exerted themselves. They found their way. The crowd quietened down. And as soon as Joe Linton scored that second goal, the game was almost done. At the time, it didn't feel like it, but the crowd stopped engaging. You could tell that the crowd felt that the game was slipping away. Forest in possession were really poor. That was led by Willock's press, and then Isak, as I say, the position and the fact that he was linking up really well. The fact that actually it was really shown best with the counter-attack that was led by Gordon and Willock and Isak. The volley that Isak just put wide in the second half, just before Joe Linton scored. It was really, really clever play from Gordon to press forward. He played in Willock, and Isak was clever enough to peel off to the back post, create the space. Perfect ball from Willock, and Isak just missed his chance. But that was a really great example of exactly what Newcastle got right yesterday. Newcastle looked much better. They were great in possession. They were great with their pressing. It was a really balanced, great away performance. And as I say, there was a lot of variety. It felt like Eddie Howe was a principals manager. You could see what they were trying to do. They wanted high energy. They wanted to play the ball forward as well, and really put Nottingham Forest under pressure. But they did it in different ways, and that's a really, really positive thing. I really want to give a shout out to Harvey Barnes when he came on. As I say, 4 goals this season. I still think he's best as an impact player, but he made a case with his goal. And Sandro Tonali, let's not forget him. This isn't a case of saying that Tonali has to battle his way into that midfield, because I think it's horses for courses, and Tonali brings something very different. Eventually, I do think that they'll try and find a way to put Tonali in Sean Longstaff's position, but at the moment that hasn't quite worked. This is a team that has a lot of competition for places at the moment. This is a team full of confidence all of a sudden, and it has transformed this season. It's made Newcastle go into this international break full of excitement for what comes next. We've got West Ham at home as soon as it ends, and that's a really great opportunity to push on and try and close the gap into that top 4, top 5 going into December as well. That's when everything got too much for Newcastle last season. The injuries were piling up, the games were piling up. If Newcastle can manage December a lot better this season, going into January, and then they can strengthen, it can be a really good season. That's how crucial yesterday was in terms of convincing that Newcastle can go and do something this season, because it was a big thing about them going away from home. They've been really poor in terms of performances, very similar issues with each of their away defeats. That was a very, very different story, and I'm really, really pleased with the way that it went. And Newcastle, yeah, they can build from this. Thank you very much for joining me. Like, share and subscribe. Stay tuned for some more exploring football content, a new podcast coming as well. And yeah, please continue to subscribe and support the channel. It really does help. I'll see you next time for the next video. Cheers.